Bob Gallagher has the real estate market covered. This is Real Estate Matters with Bob Gallagher.
And welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Matters here on the Money Matters Radio Network. I'm your host, Bob Gallagher, joined in the studio today by Peter DeMore and Stuart Joseph. And our special guest today is Matt Heisler of Heisler & Mattson Properties in Westboro. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
So, Matt, you've been in real estate for about 10 years now?
That's right.
And I understand you have your own home selling index. We don't see that very often. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's real estate can be an area where it's hard to differentiate, and I'm really a numbers guy. And I noticed that real estate markets, ebbed and flowed in ways that were very difficult for the average buyer and seller to figure out.
Right.
And so I tried to see if there was some way I could actually track it numerically based on the available statistics that are out there on a per town basis.
Right.
And what I found was I was able to do that, and that the numbers were very revealing to show when there was either lopsided supply or lopsided demand, and that in turn was very helpful in telling buyers which towns they were likely to have the most competition, where they were likely to get the best deals, which towns were more likely to go on a run after they did a purchase, which is very interesting for buyers.
Right.
And if sellers, a lot of times they say, well, if it's a good time to sell, give me a call. Now I'm not just someone just shilling for that. I can actually say these numbers tell me that it is really a good time.
Now, you service Metro West along the Pike?
That's correct.
What would you say are the hottest towns in that area?
Well, certainly Natick and Hawkinton have to be two of the towns that are in the most demand right now.
Now, is it true that Natick is really popular because I actually live there, or is that not the case?
I don't know that that's – I'm sure it's a big component of it.
Part of it, anyway.
Yes.
I heard it dropped like 8% because you moved there last year.
But then it went up 12, so net 4 increase.
Yeah, that's true.
The reasons why – obviously a numerical approach necessarily won't tell you. I mean, Natick is a very popular town because of its proximity to Boston.
Right.
High quality schools. It has, elements of urban living, which, definitely is attractive to a lot of the buying marketplace.
Right.
But having said that, it's been on a 3-year run, and prices are soaring, and the competition for properties is absolutely fierce.
I actually was talking to a neighbor, and they were saying that there's a farm. I've never been to it. Some sort of farm where you can go on hay rides in Natick, and they're actually starting to carve parts of it out and turn it into subdivisions.
Well, Wellesley used to be a bunch of cow farms too. Mm-hmm. So, this is sort of the way of the world.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. What other towns in the area in Metro West are really hot right now?
Framingham, is very hot, and as I mentioned, Hopkinton, they have seen double-digit percentage increases in prices.
Wow.
And the availability has just dropped to levels which I didn't even know would really be possible.
Right.
And it's made it very difficult for buyers. The buyers sit there on the shelf and wait for new properties to come on the market, and they know that there's probably not going to be a lot of chances to buy something, and that just accelerates, the entire process of the houses.
Are you starting to see frustration on the buying side?
Well, certainly impatience, probably more than frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you really get a lot of frustration when the markets get so overheated that they end up going from competitive bid situation to competitive bid situation and not getting that house.
Right.
That is a very demoralizing experience for most buyers.
Now, when you say competitive bids, I mean, are you talking about there's one or two other people, or are you talking about 8 to 10 other people?
In some of these markets, if the house is priced at slightly below market, you will see 8 to 10 bidders on a house. That is not as nearly as uncommon as we would like it to be.
So it goes from slightly under market to selling, I'm imagining, well over market.
Yes. Typically, when you have that many people bidding on a property, someone will go tens of thousands, $20,000 above wherever it's listed.
And I imagine part of that is just being tired of losing every other house they've looked at.
Yep. Usually the people who, I call it shooting the moon, who shoot the moon on those types of properties have been on the other end of that process before.
Right.
Matt, I've noticed that there appears to be a tremendous amount of buyers out there during this winter season, and I'm guessing with these bids that there's not enough inventory out there.
Well, there's definitely not a lot of inventory out there, and the buying activity has quieted, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's very little to see.
Yeah.
You know, we're probably seeing more buyers at houses because they don't have to pick and choose between what they want to see. In some towns, they could be looking in a $100,000 price range, and there's only 3 houses on the market.
So people that are thinking about selling their house this spring should probably be contacting you now to see what the prices are, and especially with the buyers that are out there.
Well, it would be great if they contacted me, but they should definitely contact someone if they're thinking about moving, because in a lot of towns there's definitely an element of arbitrage, and sellers can, get significant premiums over what, say, a rational market might actually, entail.
Right.
And they could really be, especially if they're planning on switching towns, if they go from a hotter town to a town that hasn't completely heated up yet, there's an opportunity there to, do really well.
Right. And if you are listening right now and you're thinking about either selling your home or buying a home anywhere in the Metro West area, and you'd like to talk to Matt, you can give him a call at 617-755-3190. Again, it's 617-755-3190. Matt also has a blog you should check out. Very interesting stuff. It's homesellinginmass.net. Again, it's homesellinginmass.net. Can you tell us a little bit about what the audience might find on that site?
Well, there's some really good articles both about looking for a house and also about being in your house. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is targeted market reports that do show off the data that I'm talking about here on the show today.
Right.
And they have a lot of graphs that really show how the markets have evolved over the last couple of years, and they can really give you a good picture of what's going on in Metro West. But there's a lot of information there about buying houses, including information about radon, lead paint, title insurance. Mm-hmm. Basically, if it's out there in real estate, you'll probably find a good, healthy discussion of it right there on the blog.
Well, that's interesting. Again, that's homesellinginmass.net. One more time, it's homesellinginmass.net. And your office is based out of Westboro, correct?
That is correct.
And what's the address there in case anybody wants to stop by?
182 Turnpike Road in Westboro.
Great. And how long have you been in real estate, Matt?
I've been selling real estate for over 10 years. I think this will be my 11th.
Wow. And you're actually one of the top agents in the Metro West area, I see.
I'd like to think so. I haven't run the numbers, but
Mm-hmm.
I had a pretty good year last year. Yes.
Good for you. Good for you. What would you say is the best advice you could give a buyer right now that's starting to get frustrated with the process?
Well, I think the best advice just starts with timing. Don't think that this is something that you're going to be able to do and be happy with just 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Could happen that way. I mean, everyone gets lucky, but probably not. I would make sure that you give yourself a lot of runway, and wherever possible, expand the area that you're looking at so that you can see enough houses to really make an informed decision.
Right.
When the availability of property gets scarce, buyers tend to make decisions based on what they have seen, whether or not that data actually represents the market.
Right.
And they can't go into houses that have sold and then see, what was the value proposition there.
Right.
And so instead they look at what's out there, what's active, and then they tend to choose best available. That can be dangerous because if all the houses are overpriced, best available means you just overpaid.
Right. And at some point you could be on the losing end of that.
That's right. I mean, nobody likes to start a major purchase having to wait 1 year or 2 years for the market value to catch back up to what you already paid.
Right, or worse, like in the case of if you bought in 2005 and 2006, it took many years. I mean, of course, they said it would take 10 to 15 years before we got back to the values at the end of 05, 06, but now we're within what, maybe 8 to 10%?
I would say that's about right,
And
yep.
Some markets are actually headed above that already.
I would think so, yep.
Right. So you mentioned before we got started today that your HSI index actually can predict what markets are going to be the hottest and what's going to happen in the upcoming year to a certain degree.
Yeah, it is predictive just because the numbers, they don't tend to stop and turn on a dime. Mm-hmm. So that is sort of the predictive element of it. I mean, if a number is good, it's unlikely to, the numbers are fairly steady, mm-hmm. And they take, 6 to 9 months to play out. So
right.
If you have a very high HSI, it's probably going to stay high for a while.
So what would be your forecast for the majority of the Metro West market for 2014?
In terms of demand or supply or prices?
Both.
Okay.
All the above. We'll put you on the spot.
Well, I think supply is going to remain tight. I mean, it's just at the lowest levels I've ever had that we've been tracking, and it would take a tremendous surge, a real surprise in what we're seeing from listing activity in order for that to change. However, I do think that a lot of the buying pressure has subsided. It doesn't seem to be as frenetic as it was last year, and I think that's because a lot of people who were moving decided that they were going to get it done last year, and there's still more demand than there is supply for sure, but it doesn't seem that the imbalance is so much, and I think the rise in prices probably has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, we saw a drop-off last year after the whole the budget debacle and the government shutdown. We saw applications pretty much
Came to
plummet.
a screeching halt for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And the election the year before was another stunning period of no activity.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when it comes down to it, when you're making such a big purchase, which perhaps going to be the biggest purchase of your life, you need to have some stability in the government and in the economy before you're going to pull the trigger on it. However, everything we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months points to continued increases in property values, and rates are certainly headed in the upward direction. So at this point, waiting is only going to cost you more money. You were telling us about one of your customers who ended up waiting. Why don't you share that with the audience?
Well, I did have one customer who was looking in houses in a particular town for a while, and they had a pretty good option, but they decided to pass on it at the end of 2012, and then their market got very competitive, and they ended up having to pay about 15% more for a very similar house by the end of the following year because they just couldn't get in front of the competitive bid wars. The prices were just moving so fast that it just really changed the dynamic of what was available.
And it really seemed to happen overnight. I mean, it was a seller's market at the end of 2012, and the beginning of last year, it was just like somebody flipped a switch and prices started increasing.
Certainly the trend for all the towns changed dramatically last year, but what was interesting is there were definitely indicators in 2000, as far back as 2011 on my blog, there were certain towns where you could start to see the imbalance building and price pressures being put together. It usually starts, the further east you go is usually where it starts. Natick is one of the furthest east towns that I track, and that's where it started to show up. And then, it just built to a point where it made sense to keep going west.
Now, are you seeing any towns in particular that are starting to pick up some demand because people can't get houses, say, east of 495? Or?
Sure, absolutely. I think there are almost all the towns that are west of 495 are getting more of a look now and are seeing price increases that they weren't really participating in 2 years ago. Some of those towns might be Upton, Grafton, Shrewsbury, although Shrewsbury did participate pretty early in this particular recovery.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. Shrewsbury seems to be a pretty hot market now.
Yep. Well,
especially for being west of 495.
They've got a lot of, they've got a nice feature set for folks. They have a lot of young housing, which is very attractive to a large demographic of the market. They have a lot of neighborhoods, which obviously is a big part of the equation, and they have good schools. So,
and the taxes, if I'm not mistaken, are pretty good because of all the retail in the town, correct?
Yeah, the commercial development in town is very excellent, and the tax rate is about the best you'll find in Metro West. Has been for at least 6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
Sure.
the
495, they could jump on 495 and go almost anywhere with from where they are.
Yeah, Shrewsbury's maybe 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes from 495?
That's about right, yeah.
So it's a great community. There's a lot of great communities out there. We're even seeing Worcester starting to pick up as well.
Absolutely. Worcester has been, you can see very clearly on my graph for Worcester, when the turn happened, because, there were, at one point in time, there were 700 houses for sale in Worcester, and that number is down to, I think, 350, where the sales number used to be 350, and now it's at 650.
Wow.
So you literally see the lines cross as the demand curve completely changes, and, price changes are going to, are coming to Worcester.
Right.
They've already started, and they're going to keep going.
Well, everything I'm reading is talking about the biotech industry going to Worcester, and I assume that's because they have, 9 colleges?
That's a really good question. And it's not all that real estate oriented, but
it's not. Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay. But I'm very pleased that we have such a strong biotech industry in the state.
Yeah.
Because it's just, those are great jobs, and they tend to bring, a lot of very positive economic activity to the state, and that's good for everybody.
Right. And I think last year, Worcester was nominated as one of the top 50 cities to go to in the country because of all the biotech and the economic outlook. And that bodes well for the towns that surround Worcester as well.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Yep, Matt, I got to tell you, I talked to a lot of realtors, and I've never had one come up with the formulating their own statistical analysis on the numbers.
It's very interesting.
I find
stuff.
it fascinating. I really do.
It's really dorky, but it's incredibly useful.
To me, it's fascinating.
It is.
It's very useful, and I think that it helps my customers both make and save money, and for me, that's what it's all about.
Right, and you were also saying one last quick thing to make before we take a break, but you said that you actually have a model that can tell you within reason where a house is going to go, especially in a competitive bid situation?
I do, but we're not going to be sharing that over the air.
No. So what I wanted to do was actually let buyers know, if you're interested in working with Matt, he can share more information with you about this. You can give him a call at 617-755-3190. Again, it's 617-755-3190. It's Matt Heisler. He's with Heisler and Matson Properties in Westboro. And again, I'll give the number one more time. It's 617-755-3190. Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Very interesting stuff, and we look forward to having you back again soon.
It was great. Hope we can do that.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be back with more after this.
The best in real estate is right here. This is Real Estate Matters with Bob Gallagher.
And welcome back. You're listening to Real Estate Matters here on the Money